going on, Blake?
What's up, man?
Oh, another week, another episode of the Stickbow Chronicles brought to you by Blackwidow Bows. And, I just been out letting deer sniff me. How about you?
It's just about the same thing. I've had a hard time even getting in the woods, but last couple sits have been pretty productive. I think I'm zoning in on them a little bit.
Well, I seen a yesterday. That was a big bunch for around here. I don't know. I seen like 6 does in a bunch, and I saw the buck. Could see his legs through the trees. I know it was him. He was hanging back, that flipping lead doe got out there. I don't know, 70 yards back behind me, and that buck would have came through and gave me a shot, but no, she apparently smelled some dead downwind or something. I was clean, man. I was doing the Blake Hunter. I was clean. I'm telling you.
For everything other than the ozonics, which is what I keep telling you. Telling you.
I wasn't even farting. I mean, I was holding them all in. Damn it!
Oh, that's funny.
The sacrifice.
No, it's like I said on the podcast there the other day, it seems like if I just do the dead downwind or whatever I'm using, it doesn't have to be dead downwind. All of it's about the same. If I just do one thing and don't do the other thing, it seems like it doesn't work. I have to do both the scent control sprays and all of that stuff and eliminate all that as best I can, plus the ozonics. Because if I skip one step or the other, I'm going to get winded. But if I do both of them religiously, I just don't get winded.
I don't know that I can commit to the ozonics thing, but I can tell a difference. I really can. I hadn't been diligent in the last 5 years in doing this scent thing, and I've been having pretty good luck, but it seems like I've been getting busted more and more. So keeping my clothes clean. Twice now I've had encounters where I know last year that deer would have never got that close or would have never been calm. I mean, there's still something's wrong and they're moving out, but they're not blowing the whole thing up. And that's what I was going to say is even just doing the sprays and washing your clothes and taking a shower and all that stuff, it's certainly not going to get rid of your scent. I don't think that anything will, other than, the ozonics does a pretty good job of it, but it may buy you a little bit of time. Whereas, as soon as something catches your wind, it's gone. Yeah.
Versus something catching your wind and being like, oh, something's not right.
Well, the whole term of just narrowing the scent cone makes sense to me.
Yeah. And just, it's not as I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It just, I can tell a difference when I'm doing those things and when I'm not. I can tell a difference in how long it takes them to decipher what they're smelling, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, we are not sponsored by Dead Downwind. That just happens to be is that North 40? That happens to be what Blake uses.
Yeah, it's just what I don't know. Maybe it's just because it seems like I've had pretty good luck with that stuff. Before I use that, I use the HS specialties, Hunter specialties or whatever for years and years and years, the green soap that you got in the clear bottle.
I used to use baking soda. I might just go back to baking soda.
Yeah. I think it's all about I know a lot of people use just like regular detergent, like Tide, scent-free Tide or whatever. Like it doesn't have to be the fancy stuff. I don't think. I think, like Aaron said, in that empty quiver, a lot of that stuff is kind of a sales pitch to a certain degree, but it's just about keeping everything as scent-free as possible.
I meant to. The last couple times we did podcasts, I keep meaning to bring up. Do they still sell? Was it Scent Lock? Do they still sell that?
Yeah, and we dove down that rabbit hole for a few years, and I don't know. I don't buy into the carbon clothing thing. I've talked to some people who are a lot smarter than me, and I guess to activate that carbon in the clothing, you would have to dry it at like a insane temperature, like 800 degrees or something like that, for it to even work.
Well, I know there
I'm
was
probably misspeaking here, but
now I heard something like that, and I know that was the stuff for I don't know a long time, but it seemed like there was a lawsuit, and it's just been real quiet. And of course, I don't look at Cabela's anymore or Bass Pro Shops, stuff like that. So I don't. I don't know if it's still out there or not.
Yeah, we've tried just about everything that has been out on the market, and the only thing that I have seen consistent results out of is, and I understand with the ozonics, there's a line there that some people don't want to cross, and I get that, and I respect it and everything like that. But for me, it has been a definite game changer. I've seen more mature bucks in the last 4 to 5 years than I've seen my entire lifetime. And since I've started using these things and going through this routine that I'm going through now, it's just seemed to make a huge, huge difference. Now, and, like Jim and Aaron saying that hunt the wind, and I totally get that too. There's certain situations where you can really play the wind to your advantage, and you don't have to worry about getting busted. If you know exactly like the like pinch points and funnels and things like that, you can play those things to your advantage. But there's just certain spots that I hunt that there's just not a good wind direction, and in order to hunt those spots, I've got to do everything I can do, otherwise I'm just pretty much wasting my time.
Well, I still have a few weeks to go, so we'll see. I'm going to hunt it in the morning. Hey, I got to tell you, I didn't even share this with you yet because I just got it today. I got the coolest email today from, I don't know, I'm going to guess the guy. I don't know if he said how old he is, but he was bow hunting when he was in 1960s. He started. Anyways, he just sent me an email and said, he had just found podcasts. He said, like Chris Dunn, I just found podcast a month ago. And he said, I've been listening to you guys. I love the what you do. And, God, he was just so cool. It struck me that, what's his name? I'm going to look his name up real quick here again. Bear with me. It's Ben. Well, I won't say his last name. It's Ben from Bluffton, South Carolina. And forgive me, Ben, if you're not in your 70s. Maybe you're in mid-60s. But anyways, here we got this community, or 60, 70-year-old folks all the way down to, we interact with 20-year-olds on the podcast. I'm sure, that kid sent his picture in when he was 13, shooting a doe this year. It's just super cool. That email, it's not always that we want to go and record, and it's not always that I want to edit and get this thing done, but getting emails like that makes it worth it. So thanks, Ben. Hope you have a great season.
Absolutely. No, it's hearing feedback from people is what makes it worth it, and what makes this fun is helping people out and getting that feedback from them.
Well, and to be honest,
people enjoy it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, when I leave work, when I hit service, my phone just blows up. And I usually stop at one spot and just look and see if there's somebody I need to call. And I come across the email, and I look, and it's like a novel. I'm like, I'm going to read that when I get home. And it was just super cool. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for reaching out. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Made my day. We got Harold Fahrenbrook today.
Yeah, no, and that was the first time me getting to talk to Harold, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Harold's always been one of my favorite guests that has been on the Stick Bow Chronicles or Kifaru Cast or wherever I can find Harold. I always tune in. He's just an interesting guy and has got a wealth of knowledge along a broad range of topics, and just an interesting guy, and provides a lot of information. Yeah,
he does a ton of stuff, and people that are fortunate enough to guide. I don't know. Is it fortunate or? Anyways, guys that get to guide, and you're out there. It's if you can enjoy it, because you can't always enjoy it. A guy like Harold, when you're out there all the time and that's your job, you see a lot of stuff.
Well, and you're not just drawing from your own experiences,
No.
you're drawing from the experiences of your hunter that you're watching. So that's along a broad range of personalities, a broad range of weapons, a broad range of situations. It's just you can't replace that kind of experience or duplicate it. You can't read about it. It's learned.
Yeah. And, the stories that come with it. We cover a lot of ground. Harold's awesome. Appreciate him coming on for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people are going to draw a lot from this one, especially from the first part of it there.
Dude, I thought you were going to pass out.
Man, I'm telling you, that was rough to listen to. It's getting a little queasy, lightheaded. Yeah, I don't know. Y'all have to tune in to figure that out. But I thought it was great. And some people obviously need to think about.
Absolutely. I'm guilty of it. Guilty of it this year, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I am too. As a matter of fact, the day I shot my buck, I didn't have a safety harness on.
Yeah.
I was in a lock-on stand.
Yeah, you ready to roll it?
Yeah, roll it.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks to the sponsors, Selway Archery, The Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, Ironwill Outfitters, and, of course, Blackwidow Bows. We appreciate their support. Good luck to everybody out there. Far as my world goes, I've still got a few weeks. Peak of the Rut's rolling. And get your photos sent in to ihuntcloseofficial@gmail.com. Really kind of getting excited. We're getting towards the end there, man. Going to have to pick some winners after December 1st. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be a challenge, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, we gotta start gathering things up and get ready to pick a winner.
I think we discussed maybe there's 4 different four different prizes, and we discussed maybe narrowing it down to like 10 or something like 10 or 12, and then putting them on Facebook and letting people vote for them. Kind of.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome to get people interacting with the photos, and that way we don't have to pick it. We can let the listeners pick it.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool. All right.
I'm good, man. You good?
You betcha. Roger out. Man, Blake, you ought to see the photos. I'll have to send you the pictures of where Harold is right now in Kansas.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Oh.
Yeah, we got well over 1,000 inches of whitetail horns and over 2,000 inches of mule deer horns, all from the same family.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, I mean there's I think a total between mule deer and whitetail 11 over 200 inches, 5 whitetail over 200.
Oh, good grief. That's crazy. I've hunted up there some, not a whole lot, but and Harold, I know you're not super familiar with me. I hunt in North Texas, which is not what you would traditionally think of Texas, but it's also not anything like Kansas. And I love hunting in Kansas. It's a really good change up.
Yeah, unfortunately, this area over here got hit really hard with whether blue tongue or chronic wasting or something, but the numbers are just way down. Where I used to sit in the tree stand and pass a half dozen 140-inch deer a day, just with some really good genetics. Now you're not seeing any of those borderline bugs, so you kind of just want to grab your string and pull back that bow. Now you're seeing, 70, 80, 90-inch little tiny dinks, and there's a big old gap, and then you'll see the wall hanger. There's just nothing. It really hit a certain age class of deer or bucks hard. And some of the big mature bucks, maybe they're able to just have enough health to them that got them through this. And then the young bucks, because they're young and they got more of immunity or whatever, was able to get through this. There's a certain age class, that 130s to 140s that just got hit hard here. and I'm just not seeing them.
Yeah, just like the 3-year-old age class. We had a bad flood here some years back and had kind of the same thing happen. We lost a huge portion of our fawn crop and had a gap in the age class there for a few years that just like you'd see 1 and 2-year-old bucks and you would see 5, 6, 7+ year-old bucks, but just absolutely no 3 and 4-year-old bucks.
Yep. We see in Alaska where I got up there on a guide. I mean, we can look at the age rings on these sheep that we're shooting, and we already know that year. We already know why the spacing on that ram is different that year because we recognize those years. We've been there for so long, and we know that in 2007, I mean, it was a cold spring. Everything's melting off, but then all of a sudden a cold spring hit. Now they can't get down to the groceries, and it killed a lot of sheep, or the ones that just got through it by a hair. The growth ring on that sheep is going to be, instead of 1.5 inches between 5 and 6 years old or whatever, it's going to be only a 1/2 inch distance between them. So it really throws it off. It almost looks like a false ring. But we already know when we look at it, it was like, okay, this was that year and this was that year. I mean, we know the history of just being up there and documenting the stuff we have with these sheep. And then so the same thing, we've had bad winter kills up there in the Brooks Range. We've had when I say winter kills, spring or winter killed them. And then you're going to have a lot of, we're going to have a void, those couple of years. And then all of a sudden those 6 and 7-year-old rams that were passing, but it made it through that winter because they're younger and healthier. Now all of a sudden now we're shooting those rams, those same 7-year-old rams that are, 9, 10 years old, but we can always tell that bad year or those bad years in their growth ring pattern. And we've explained that to biologists, and they're like, man, that's a false ring. We're like, okay, go ahead and slice her down the middle all the way down. Here's a free ram. We'll let you have it. I'll guarantee you that's a growth ring. They called our bluff, cut the rings. We're like, you're right. We know we're right. We document that. We know when there's a bad winter. We know when there's a bad spring, and it reflects onto the sheep horns because, obviously they don't shed them, and they reflect that growth ring of having a good year. You got 1.5 inches between every single growth ring. And every once in a while, there's a hiccup in there. You're okay at 5 years old. What year was that when he was 5? That was 2007. That's when we had the bad winter. So we know this stuff, and we're pretty anal about being able to just quiz ourselves in like, well, this is why this is the way it is. So it's just kind of cool when you have that kind of history and been up there that long. You kind of know good years and bad years.
Well, heck yeah, their horns are a walking document.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, So when you're saying you're basically saying that the growth ring is so close, they're so close together because of it was a bad year. They didn't grow that much horn that year. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, because the health of that, the stress of that animal, because of whether he was looking for groceries or a bad winter, affected his horn growth.
So now, yeah, just no different than a whitetail or mule deer or elk or anything else. Then I guess, but you can actually, it's neat that you can see it in their progression in their horn.
Yeah, because with a deer and elk, he might have a bad year, so look bad that year, but he's going to make it up the following year, and you'll never know the difference. Well, a sheep can't make it up; it's stuck there to him. He can't do it. It'll always be the evidence of his bad year. And with deer and elk, you won't have the evidence of a bad year because he shedded those horns; they're gone.
Now, what word did you say that the biologist was calling it? A false or
a false ring?
Yeah.
So there's some false rings on all sheep. A lot of people, if they don't have an aged sheep for a while, you got to have a consistency as that ring completely wrap the horn, and kind of underneath, it kind of makes an indentation. And you have a false ring every once in a while to where they just had some extraordinary growth or whatever, but you got to look for the consistency throughout the horn. 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches all the way around. And when you have a bad spring or a bad winter, all of a sudden that 1.5 inches turns to 3/4 of an inch. Totally out of whack with his pattern of growth rings. So they're saying, well, the reason why it's thrown out of pattern is because because that's a false ring. And we're like, no, it's not a false ring. That was a bad year. That was 2007. When he was 5 years old, that was 2007.
So is that something a guy would get dinged over? If you had an age restriction on sheep, and you're glad. So there actually is such thing as a false ring, I guess is where I'm going.
Oh, there's definitely such thing as a false ring, but anybody with this slightly higher than a pea-sized brain will be able to pick out those false rings. Yeah, I can tell. I mean, I'm
So
not always
you
right.
probably couldn't, Rob.
Yeah. Better be.
I didn't mean to throw anybody under the bus there, but
That's all right. I know what the
under the bus every chance I get.
I know what the underside of that bus looks like.
yeah. So but at any rate, I mean, I've been fooled too before, especially when to me, a ram in Alaska to be legal is no matter what a trophy. The only reason I say that is because he's got to be 8 years old to be legal. He's got to be double broomed to be legal, or at least full on one side to be legal. So no matter what, he's got to be a trophy. But there's always that. Where was I going with that? When you're sitting there with a spotting scope at 150, 200 yards away, and you're trying to grow growth rings because he's not at least full on one side, he's not double broomed. So now you're trying to age him to make him legal. I'll never shoot on an 8. I got to have an insurance ring.
Oh.
But when I'm looking at him through that spotting scope to tell my client who's got through paying $20,000 for the sheep hunt, yeah, he's good, he's legal. That my whole reputation, my everything leans on that judgment. And but when you can identify it, so when I'm looking at it, I go like, God, that looks like a false ring. If I have any doubt whatsoever, I don't count that ring. It's just not worth it. It's too close to call. I got to have the consistency. So when I'm looking at rams it's probably, I know he's 9, but I'm counting a false ring there. And I don't know till I get my hands on it if that's really a false ring. So I'll never make a judgment call on a false ring. All I know is when I get them in my hand, I can identify them at that point.
That's all interesting. So let me back up a little bit before we get, last time you were on, we said, hey man, maybe next time talk about sheep, but right now you're in Kansas, you're chasing some Magnum. Well, you're hoping to kill a Magnum whitetail. And I think it's really appropriate. I mean, people can learn. We all learn from people's mistakes. Now you're in Kansas and you did have an accident several years ago in Kansas at a tree stand, right?
Yep.
Can you tell us what went on there?
Yeah, I had a target buck, and he was over in an area where he was kind of using these cattails to kind of hide from everybody and put his does down. And there was a cottonwood there. It was right on the edge of this thing. It was 10 below zero, and this tree was. I mean, I tried to hunt this buck on level ground, but the cattails were too high. I don't know how many times I was within 15 yards of him, but I couldn't get an arrow to him. I could just see the top of his horns because the cattails were too high. So there was this cottonwood there that was going to work perfect where they're going in and out of these cattails. Set my tree stand up in there, and I get there in the morning before light, hear him out there grunting, chasing does. I'm assuming it's him, and it was him. And what I was in, I make all cottonwoods in Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, they got a Y. Most of them do. And so I make what I call the homemade crotch. I call it a crotch stand. So you put it up there, and it's kind of got a hinge in the middle. You put it in the crotch of the tree, and you jump on it, and it has teeth on both ends that kind of just grab that tree, and it's not going to go anywhere. But the problem is it doesn't come with a seat. So you got to have, an aftermarket seat so you can, have something to sit on while you're hunting. Well, I've been using this seat for 4 or 5 years, and I look out there, and here's this buck. He's rubbing that 190-inch mark, and I'm going to kill this deer this day. And I look down, and all of a sudden, I'm like, why is he looking my direction? The wind's perfect. I mean, it's all good. Well, here's a perfect scenario. I got a doe decoy right at the base of my tree. I don't know where she came from, but now she's almost got me pegged, and I'm about ready to blow it. So I had my binoculars to my face, and I was able to, I was standing, so I just went to go sit down again. And when I did, the pot metal broke on that seat. And when I sat and put my weight on, it flipped me over backwards, and I hit the ground. Got my hands out in front of me because I had compound fractures on both my arms. I broke my cheekbones, my eyebrow bones, my upper palate, and my mouth. And I also broke my spleen, ruptured my spleen, because my guts because I've just come to a complete stop and maybe get my arms out in front of me. Kept going forward and ruptured my spleen and bruised my lungs. And yeah, it was a real shit show. When I woke up, and by the amount of brain damage that I had, they're assuming I was at least out 25 minutes. I had the sensation of not being able to breathe, like I was choking, like my mouth was full of dirt. So I went to put my right hand. I went to put my hand in my mouth. Well, I couldn't. It was dangling right below my elbow. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm done bow hunting. And I go to get my left hand in there, and I can't get my glove off because my ulna bone and the two fingers from my ring finger and my middle finger were sticking, and they were pointing the wrong direction. So when I tried to get my mitten off, they kept grabbing the mitten, the bones inside, so I couldn't get my glove off. I'm about ready to pass out again because I can't breathe. And I finally got my thumb out, and I got my thumb and I put it in my mouth to wipe out what I thought was going to be dirt. It wasn't. It's because my whole face was broken. It was laying on top of my tongue, cutting off my airway. So when I lifted up on the roof of my mouth, I could now breathe. The problem is I had a split right down the roof of my mouth that my thumb kept on slipping into, and then I couldn't breathe no more. So it broke. You don't have an upper jaw, but it broke the top part of that.
Yeah.
And and then I had the skull fracture. My skull was broken behind my eyes. So I have two staples behind my left eye and one behind my right eye where my skull had split open.
I think Blake passed out.
Man, it's hard for me.
He's like, cause I can see him on Zoom, and he's
hard for me to listen to that. But that's the kind of stuff that people need to hear, though. I'm just as bad as anybody else. A lot of times, if I'm hunting out of a ladder stand, I won't wear a safety harness, and that's probably not good practice, because just because the stand's not going to fall doesn't mean that you're not going to trip on something and fall out of the damn thing. And
yeah,
can I ask you this? How high were you?
I was only 16 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, that's a low stand for me.
And
I stick between 12 and 16. So, and I guess you get some false sense of security when you're not hunting that high, but 15 foot and, golly, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that's probably more than that because I flipped over back. My feet were at 15 feet. I'm at 16 feet. So it was probably more like 18 feet. But bottom line is, I was hunting, it was 10 below zero. And I'm hunting right next to water, and the ground's frozen 100% solid.
Yeah.
Where I hit. So there was no give. But what kept me from bleeding out was because it was so damn cold. And when my bones pierced through my arms, it didn't hit no arteries or hit any veins. So I came to before any of that kind of stuff happened. But they put me in a induced coma for 3 days, out for 2 days, and back in for 16 days.
How did you get out of there? Did somebody find you?
I walked out. I got to my feet, and I'm probably about a half mile from my truck. Maybe not a half mile, maybe about a third mile from my truck. And I used waders to kind of go over the top of your boots that you have on, so you just kick them off on the other side. You don't have to take everything off. And I didn't bother putting them on because I couldn't, because I had two broken arms. Only on my left arm, only my ulna was broken. The bottom part was still intact. That's why I could use my thumb and my forefinger. But so I just waded across the river. So obviously froze solid. By the time I got to my truck, I obviously started it with my left hand and was steering with my left hand. But the problem is I had to also use my left hand to keep my thumb breathe. And I lost consciousness again. But my truck was still in park, and I went driving up over the road and came down the other side, and there was another house there. Then the people always saw me parked right there because they knew Justin was letting me hunt. And my truck was in gear enough that it went across the burrow ditch over and bumped into their house because I know no accelerator, it was just it was in gear. And the guy that came out, he had a garden hose right there that I ran into, and it broke it up in a bunch of pieces. And lo and behold, he's an EMT.
Oh, wow.
He recognized the situation I was in and took one of those pieces of broken hose, because I told him I couldn't breathe. And I was having to keep my thumb in my mouth, and he just put one of those small pieces of hose that crumbled up when my truck hit it, and so I could breathe through this straw. And then when I got to the hospital in the small these country towns in Kansas, they gave me the CAT scan and saw that I had the skull fracture. They didn't have the means to take care of me there. They didn't want me there no more, so everything got taken care of in Denver.
You know,
that's a really good lesson for people.
Yeah, and Harold, you shared that on here before, and I appreciate you sharing it because, people need to hear it. Yeah, it
wasn't because I lost my balance. It wasn't because I fell asleep. And what's amazing is these storm chasers, because all my injuries indicated like a head-on collision with a vehicle. And my face was broken, my arms were broken. I mean, it was just, so, people want, this is Sioux Crazy Nation is what we're living in right now, and how people were wanting to just jump on board with that. And I'm like, oh, well, then I finally would find out that I was, hunting. It wasn't a car accident. Finally found out that I was in the stand. I'm like, well, we can sue them. You said it broke. I mean, yeah, it broke. I go, but it's my own fault that I wasn't wearing a harness. If I wore a harness like they recommend and tell you to do, I would have continued to hunt that day. And that's just, as we all know, that's kind of how our society is ran these days. But
it's a strange world we're living in.
It wasn't part of my personality, let's put it that way.
Wow. And you, before we got started, now you talked about times being in Alaska and having some rough goes and tree stands.
Well, Kansas has kicked my ass compared to anywhere else. I was doing something really stupid. I had a deer coming in 2 days in a row, and I had a branch that was way up high in a tree that was down in my shooting lane. So what it meant, I had to go climb this other tree, climb up about 10 feet, and reach out there with a saw and cut this branch down. I'm tired of this deer. That's just where he would always stop, turn around, jump the fence. So I couldn't shoot him. So I'm like, I'm going to fix this. So I get over there, and I only grabbed 2 tree steps out of the tree that I was in to take over to there because there was a crotch in the tree about 6-7 feet off the ground. And once I got to there was enough branches that I could go ahead and climb the tree. I just needed to get to that point. I just grabbed 2 tree steps. And I wish I'd have had another one, but I thought, well, rather than go there and pull the third one out, I can make this work. I'm athletic enough. So I step on the step and I put a really huge amount of inertia behind it to throw my other leg up in the crotch of this tree. Well, I made it, but the peg stripped out of the tree. And so all that was up there was my foot. And it instantly broke my ACL and my MCL.
Oh, Jiminy Christmas.
And I'm hanging there upside down. I go, man, this looks stupid.
Oh my God.
And it's going to be embarrassing. I'm going to be laying here upside down. Plus I got that dough and heat your stuff on me. I'm like, shit, some buck's going to really nail me now. So
down.
Yeah. So I finally was able to, luckily that tree step was still hanging on by a thread after I got through the pain of gritting my teeth of what was going on with my knee being inverted the way it was. And I was able to grab the peg, screw it back in, and then push up on it to where I could get my body weight off my leg to where I could throw it up over that crunch, that tree, and come crashing to the ground again. So yeah, Kansas has kicked my ass. And flatland Kansas, I go to Alaska and I'm walking knife edges. I'm hunting. I'm in sheep country, and it hasn't come close to kicking my ass like Kansas has. So.
You ever think of quitting deer hunting?
Oh, I have. Yeah. So I can keep sheep hunting. Yeah.
You were telling me before we get started, I thought it was pretty funny. Your misfortune. You were telling me about a brown bear pulling all your steps out.
Oh yeah. I had a sow. There is an illusion of people that say that, oh man, as long as you got time to get up a tree, that you're safe. Brown bears can still climb trees. I'm here to tell you. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's unusual, but they can climb trees, especially the sows and young boars, because their claws ain't long enough to where it keeps them from getting their whole paw on the tree to where they can grab a hold of it. And we had this sow that got on us, and she had cubs with her. Of course, she wanted to climb straight up that tree, and she did, all the way to the base of the tree stand. And I hit her with pepper spray, and she did a back flop, and then to re-grab the tree. And then as she did, she stripped every single peg out of the tree. And we're 20 feet up in the tree. So, I mean, I probably needed to have more baby wipes on hand and always have Sensitive, because my client definitely needed to change his underwear after that. And so did I. But I got over there. I'm like, so now I'm going to have to dry hump this tree all the way down to the ground and start picking up my pegs and start screwing it back in so we could leave when we need to leave. But I know this bear is lurking in the background, waiting to come and get us. And sure as shit, she heard me coming. I was halfway down and just holding onto the tree. I'm not standing on any steps. She stripped them all out, and I had the spray with me, and I hit her again right on my ass, And this time she made it all the way to the ground, hit the ground, and I kind of knocked the wind out of her, and she kind of crawled off a little bit. But I mean, I was out of pepper spray now, so now it's time. I'm going to have to use a 10 millimeter, and I don't want to have to kill her. But yeah, so I've been experienced with the having to come out of your tree all the way down like this, like a totem pole, just getting splinters up your thighs and just holding that tree all the way down. Dry humping it all the way down to the bottom.
You should be sponsored by a Treestand company. I really think you should.
Yeah, on how not to use our product probably, but
I was going to ask, what is your safety precautions now? Like, what do you religiously use a harness and a lifeline, or?
In Alaska, we use lifelines now, just for liability, with Jonah being the outfitter and whatnot. We got lifelines on all our stands. Here in Kansas, I love hunting on the ground. I mean, if windy days, we've had horrible windy days in Kansas, and I've been on the ground trying to, stalk these deer, because, they can't catch movement. They can't hear nothing. They can't see nothing because everything in the whole forest is moving. So I tried to, and I got it. I could have shot some bucks, but just young bucks. But in a tree stand, when I'm kind of consumed to that, and I have to do that because of the situation, the undergrowth of the forest, I promised my family, my friends, that I would never get in a tree again without a harness. So yes, to answer your question, I'm much smarter about it now than I was before.
I remember growing up, none of us ever wore harnesses growing up, and that wasn't really drilled into my head until probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. But none of us ever wore harnesses, and looking back, it's pretty silly to be climbing in and out of a tree and doing gymnastics in the middle of the night, trying to hold a flashlight in your mouth because we were too dumb to use headlamps.
Especially when you're sitting there. Yeah. And it's 10 below zero, or it's colder and shit, and your body's kind of got rigor mortis set in already, and you can barely use your fingers and your feet, and it is stupid. And I'm just like you. I've been doing it forever without a harness, and I wasn't say I was proud. It just didn't come into play, and I learned the hard way. So hopefully, if anybody's listening to this podcast, they're like, you know what, I've been kind of old school and kind of did it the way so these guys were doing it, thinking they're fine. But after listening to this, I'm going to do myself and my family a favor, and I'm going to wear a harness. And if that gets through, then this is going to be a first-class podcast, because I won't get in one without one now.
That's good.
Absolutely. I think it's a great lesson for everybody, and a very unfortunate story, but a good one for people to hear to kind of open their eyes to it.
Yeah. And I can even send you guys a text of a front view of my face, left side and right side. I probably have a pound of metal in my face.
Oh, really? A reconstruction like
together? Yeah.
Blake almost went out again. He's getting a little white.
Yeah,
man, I can put up with a lot of things, but for some reason, some things like that, I don't know. I can't handle it. I get a little queasy feeling.
Well, I can't.
Rob cut his finger the other day, and what was it the other day? You almost passed out.
No, that's when I do when I have to take my blood sample once a year and use that little pinprick thing.
That's what it was.
That's takes me like 4 days to do that. Yeah, I can't. But then I'd almost cut my finger off with a saw, and I'm cool with that. But like the self-infliction is the problem.
Yeah, and since then I've had to give myself shots every 5 days. I give myself a steroid shot and a testosterone shot because my pituitary gland that sits between both lobes of your brain is gone now. I don't have one, and that's what sends a signal to all the glands in your body to produce testosterone, to produce whatever your lymph nodes, and every gland in your body is getting a signal to do that. Well, now I got to take medication to do that because I no longer have one. So,
yeah, hopefully somebody takes away from that. Again, appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, no problem.
Definitely.
But we had really we were hoping to talk to you about sheep. I've had you on a couple times, and we've talked about you killing a lot of stuff. But you've killed a few sheep. You've been on a few sheep hunts in your life, and you guide sheep, right?
Yeah, this year was a really good year up there in the Brooks Range guiding wise, like they all are. My first client, holy cow, did he shoot a ram? It's the longest sheep we've shot in the Brooks Range. And this ram was so big, and we knew it was a special ram, that Jonah flew me in there, and I camped on this thing for 6 days before season even started.
Wow.
To keep an eye on this thing. And it was lucky that we did, because there was no honor system with this sheep. And with COVID-19 or whatever, there was more residents hunting up there than we've ever run into before, because people just weren't working or whatever. So they would see our camps there, and they'd be like, pretty much, yeah, whatever, we're going after this ram. So the courtesy was out the door. But with that, I was able to keep, we didn't want to disturb this ram. Big rams like that, when you land up on top and land, close to them or whatever, they, like anything, and it's an old cliche, they didn't get that big by being stupid. So we're playing it smart. We're down there on the lake. We used a float plane to get me in there. So now I got to do a whole lot of vertical climbing, but we're not educating the ram that we're onto him. And when the next people saw him, they're flying over looking for sheep, because you can legally go look for sheep until opening day of sheep season. Then you can't look for sheep no more legally, the plane. So yeah, they would buzz these sheep. He stood out like a sore thumb. I mean, he's just a no-brainer ram. And they would fly in a camp up on top. Well, my sheep didn't like it, and I was witnessing that all from the bottom. And he ended up moving like 8 miles.
Wow.
Probably more than that if you're counting just up and down, but where the crow flies. So they had no idea where he was, because he came down the cliff side, the river side of the mountain. But I was able to keep an eye on him. And so we didn't find him when we wanted to find him opening day, August 10th. But we still shot him opening day. We shot him at, I think, 11:55, the opening day. And this guy had this long distance gun where he said, "Man, I'm comfortable out to 1,200 yards." And we shot it at 30 yards. And he was in the cliff.
That's the way to do it.
Kind of just peeking over the edges. Okay, he's not there. Go down to the next level. Peek over that, and we found him. There he is, 30 yards away. And he goes, "I don't know where to hold." I go, "Just point it at him." I'm a bow hunter,
Look down the barrel.
He made a good shot, and the ram was done. But a 42-inch ram, just an absolute stud of a ram. And probably the longest ram shot in the Brooks Range this year.
Wow. How many inches? Did you say how many inches his horn was?
42.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'd have been a hell of a bow kill at 30 yards, man.
Oh yeah, he was a slam dunk with a bow. Then I had an archery hunter, great guy. This guy was, I think he's 61 or 62. He's an old iron worker, and he's used to working on I-beams on skyscraper buildings, So we get these knife edges where I'm digging my toes in, 3 feet below the edge, and putting my arms over the top of the edge to go maybe 20 yards between, through this knife edge to get to the next good mountain. And because it's, 1,000 feet on both sides, and it's a knife edge. I mean, it's all but cutting your coat as you're swimming across this thing. And here he is. I'm like, okay, I want to make sure everything is good. I go across first, turn back around. He's following me, but he's walking on top of it. So, I mean, he had zero fear. And, my asshole's puckered tighter than hell. And I'm like, holy shit, But we did like a 23-mile day one day. Walked 19 hours. And this guy was right on my heels the whole way, just gave 110%. Could not have asked more of this guy. And, but he knows he messed up. If you listen to the podcast, he goes, yeah, that was me, because he owned it. But we rehearsed this ram. There was 3 rams there. Well, there were 4, but 1 left about a half hour before. As we're studying these sheep, we don't know where he went, but we didn't care. He was a little banana head. So there was these 3 rams, and 1's legal. Good ram. And the way they're bedded down, I'm like, okay, we're like 80 yards away. I'm like, okay, we're going to go around there. We're going to be like 30 yards away when we come around over that edge. So when you come over the top, the one we want to shoot is kind of bedded down up on the upper side of that saddle. So when you come up, he's going to be the only ram you can see because he's the highest ram. I go, that's the one you need to shoot, because the other 2 ram were borderline legal. I just couldn't make them legal, but he for sure was legal. And then I was training a upcoming guide, and his name was Dan. He's 80 yards away. So I'm like, I told Dan, I go, hey, if they get up and change order, they do something changes, I'm going to look back at you with my binoculars, and you give me the thumbs up, like everything's still good. And if the thumbs down means I need to reevaluate on where the legal ram is before I let my client go up there and shoot something.
Right.
So we're all rehearsed here. I'm like, hey, if we turn it back around, we look back at Dan, he's giving us a thumbs up, you shoot this ram. Well, he crawls up there, gets up there, and he puts see him putting his release on the string, and he's like, and all of a sudden he takes it back off the string, puts his bow down, crawls back down to me. I'm like, well, what are you doing? He goes, I just need you to look one more time to make sure that I'm going to shoot the right ram. I look back at Dan, he's still giving me the thumbs up. In fact, he's giving me double thumbs up now. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? And I can look around, I can see the ass of the ram from where I'm at. I'm like, they're still better. I'm like, no, get up there and shoot that fucking ram. What part of us rehearsing this for 10 minutes before we came down here don't you understand? Because I just don't feel comfortable. Go up there and take a look. And he wouldn't do it. So I crawled up there, standing right next to his bow, look over. Yep, everything is good to go. He's looking away. Everything is perfect. Crawl back down. So yeah, everything's good, because I just needed that confidence. I just needed that. He crawls back up there just in time for that 4th ram to come back, and ran right into him and blew the whole deal.
Oh,
man.
And,
man, I can sympathize with the guy, though. You wouldn't want to. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to be sympathetic. I mean, he spent $20,000 to go do this, and we got 30 yards from a ram with his bow. He's rock solid. He would have made it happen. But to me, I still give him my grade. I give him as an F, because we rehearsed it. There was nothing he didn't understand. He told me he totally understood. We get down there at this saddle, we got to go 10 feet up, and he's going to be shooting down on this ram. Has no idea we're there. We look over our left shoulder back at Dan. He's giving us a thumb up. Nothing has changed. And it's like, why do we even have a conversation up there? Was my end of it. But his end of it, being a guy that don't want to shoot, a sublegal ram, things like that. So you have to be empathetic to that, but nothing had changed. He didn't get that ram. And then I think the last day of the season, Jonah flew him in a rifle, and he ended up shooting another ram, Filco ram, nice ram, with a rifle. But, he hunted so freaking hard with that bow, and I wanted him to get a ram, and he should have.
Oh, man. But a blue-collar guy, too, eh? Steel worker?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing you won't do for that kind of client. And I've made good friends with him. I mean, he's really good people. Lives in Colorado, actually. And so I know I'm going to have a continued relationship with him. And, we had a phenomenal hunt, but he gives me that extra oompah in regards to how much longer can I keep doing this? And with somebody like him as your client, you're like, you know what? I still got plenty of years under my belt, because he was able to do everything that I did.
Yeah. How old was he?
I think he was 62.
Dang, man, that's getting after it. 23-mile day in that country. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a 74-year-old guy 3 years ago. It was a coal mine worker.
Oh, you're kidding me.
He shot a 41-inch ram. After the podcast, I'll text you the pictures of that 41-inch ram with the 72-year-old, and then this 42-inch ram that one guy shot.
Dang,
and then I'll send you the pictures of my
your
put
face?
back together head.
Is that going to be the
thought that they would have, with that kind of money and that much time they spent working on me, that I would be looking a lot better than I do right now. But I wasn't awake for the whole process.
Sheep. What else did you guide for moose this year? Or what else you got going on there?
Yeah, I did guide for moose. My first client for moose, moose has been his Achilles heel, is what he needed for the Super 29. And he got his moose. So he finally was able to get the 29 species of the Super Slam. So
Wow.
that was really cool. And then my next client was Donnie Vincent. And he had his own film crew guys and I always hate doing video hunts. I've done them in the past. And they've always been a hiccup in one way or another in regards to the reason why we didn't get something, because the hunter had a shot, but the camera crew didn't have the video, or the camera crew had the video, but the hunter didn't. I mean, it just ends up being a real headache. But what made this different with Donnie's crew is both his camera crew guys are hunters.
Yeah.
And the first thing Danny told me goes, "Hey, no, I'm in your hip pocket. We get a shot at this bull. It's their job to be in the right spot, get it done. I'm not going to be looking over my shoulder and say, hey, waiting for a thumbs up, like, hey, can I shoot?" He goes, "No, their job is to just have it on film when I shoot." And these guys were just phenomenal to work with. What wasn't fun to work with was the fact that, it was just, God, it could have been so great. The moose were very cooperative. We had some really nice moose spotted the day we flew in, and we lost 8 of our 10 days to such bad fog you could almost not see your hand in front of your face.
Oh man.
So that's rough.
It wasn't the moose fault. It wasn't my client's fault. And then it's Donnie Vincent, who has a lot of his own hunting shows, does a lot of commercials, has a pretty good influence, and he has a certain niche in the industry.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad he's out there doing it. If there's somebody on the fence that I don't know if I like hunting, there's pros and cons, but I just don't know where I stand. Donnie's going to pull that person over to our side, and not so much our side in regards to being a hunter, but just that there's a reason for hunting. It's a resource that is a must. You might not want to do it yourself, but it doesn't need to mean it doesn't still need to be done or take place. There's nothing more cooler in this world to go out there and harvest an animal. And when your family all sits around the kitchen table and sit down and eating, you're providing for your family. And as soon as you make it look cool, it's going to be cool. And Donnie has that personality in the way he presents his films of being able to, of getting into that not only neutral ground, but even on the other side of the fence and pulling people back to, like, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to take a peek at this whole hunting thing, and maybe it's not as bad as what's been drilled into my head. And so he really has a really good niche on that. And I thought we were going to butt heads about a few things, but we didn't. He was a class act and really handled it well. I mean, he put some big money, had some sponsors in this, and he was using a rifle that's the caliber is not even on the market for the general public. The caliber he was using, the casing, is a plastic casing. So the military has it, but it's not in the civilian world.
Oh, wow.
It's so instrumental to the civilian, to the military world, because the special forces guy can now carry 90 more rounds, same weight, because the plastic casing weighs so much less than the brass casing.
Wow.
Machine guns out of gunships and things like that, instead of melting the barrel and developing so much heat that they can't shoot no more, with the plastic casings, there's no heat.
Are you supposed to be talking about this?
He said it was okay, and I asked him about this. I said it was okay.
That's amazing. Yeah, man. Wow. That's revolutionary, wild, to say the least.
At any rate, he wasn't able to be the first person to shoot, in the civilian world. and harvest an animal with this particular caliber gun and this bullet. But I mean, he will eventually. But it just it would kind of been neat to have been part of that, and but it just kind of showed just what kind of a class act this guy was when things weren't going well, even though the pressure was high to succeed and be successful. So I was really proud of that whole hunt, even though we didn't kill anything.
You know, as you're saying, and I've talked to Donnie we've had him on here, and he's an incredible storyteller and an incredible ambassador, like you're saying. And it dawned on me, like, who am I missing? Say 15, 20 years ago, who are the ambassadors for hunting? Because there are several of them today, you know, Donnie being one, Steve Ranella being another. Am I missing somebody? Was there somebody that represented us in that light?
You know, I think at that era and that time, it wasn't such an eyesore. It was just more accepted. It was more common. I mean, there was I think at that time there was like 31 or 32 states that opening day of deer season, they shut down school. There was no school because none of the kids would have been there. It was more socially and family accepted across the board back at that time. So I think we were all ambassadors at that time.
That's a problem. If we were all ambassadors, that could be a problem.
Yeah. So, but as far as somebody standing out,
yeah.
I just think it was this more socially acceptable than it is now. Yeah,
and I think I was leaning along the lines of we were defending it because I remember in 92, 96, defending bear baiting and hound hunting, and that always comes up. But it seems like we defended it more, where guys like Donnie and Steve and maybe some others are promoting it instead of defending it. They're promoting it. So that's interesting. It just listening to you talk just kind of struck a chord with me.
Yeah, they're making it look cool. Donnie's cool. I mean, let's face it, he's a cool dude, and he's a good speaker, and he puts a lot of enthusiasms into his stories. And so whether you're a captivated audience or don't plan on being a captivated audience because you just don't like hunting, then all of a sudden you listen to him talk and you're like, this guy's pretty interesting. I mean, he makes sense. And Donnie's really careful about, how he walks up to the animal, because in his mind, it's not so much about the rack. It's not so much about the trophy. It's about the hunt. It's about that animal. It's about making it to the processor, to his freezer, to his family's table. And that's the message he puts across very well. And with those people thinking that we're oldest trophy hunters or we're head hunters, this, that, and the other, I mean, I've killed tons of 2-pointers too. I've killed tons of 3-pointers too. And yeah, I got trophies on the wall. And I'll validate every single trophy that I've shot. And the reason why I go after the big guys. I mean, I've done work for the Colorado Division of Wildlife. I know the whole science behind the genetics of these big animals. And I don't want to get sidetracked here, but I'll jump in on a little bit of this. Is, you get that big old gnarly buck out there that you got trail pack cameras of him this year, and he's 200 inches. Next year, he's 200 inches again. Now he's starting to regress a little bit, but he's still, 170, 180 inch buck, even though he's starting past his peak. Well, he's still got that dominance. And as we all know, deer work about the same 3-mile area their whole lives. So pretty much everybody knows they've got their ass kicked by this guy. But he's still a trophy buck. He's still the mature buck. And you go up there and I want to hunt this buck. And it's important for me or you or anybody to harvest this deer, because even though he's a trophy, he's plenty healthy, the guy's shooting blanks. And if he's not shooting blanks, he is now old enough and been the main guy for such a long time, he's starting to breed his offspring. So then you start getting into an unhealthy deer herd.
Well, that's a good point.
And so it's important to get to keep cycling that through. It's like, okay, you've done it. You've given us the most genetics and the most awesome horn growth of any area in this unit because of your dominance, and you've been able to stay alive for all this time. But now you've ran your course, and I hope I'm the one that gets to harvest you. Because if I don't, and you're doing this again next year, we could end up with a very unhealthy herd. There's other deer in the area because of you. that are that 180, 190 inch class that are going to take your place, and we're always going to have a healthy herd. So you still got to still target those trophy bucks, but at the same time, it's also just nice to fill your freezer and put food on your family's table. So I've been on both sides of it, to where I've hunted hard for my trophy buck, my target buck, and then I've yielded to last 2 or 3 days of the season of just making sure I got meat to get me through the year. So, I'll take either course, and I'll be totally content with it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to kind of spin all that. And I want to jump back for just a second, talking about, that Donnie may not be, or people like Donnie may not be converting people into hunters, but I think it's important for people to realize and understand that the most important demographic in all of this are people who probably won't ever hunt, but if you can just get them to understand it and not vote against it is the main thing. So in other words, people I hear constantly, like, get more hunters in the woods, recruit hunters, this and that. Like, yeah, that's great and all that. But I think the most important thing that people need to realize is just to get people who maybe aren't sure about it to not dislike it and understand it.
You don't want to shove it down their throat.
That was a good point.
And Donnie's good at that. And, like anything, whether you're a bicycle rider going up a switchback road that you probably shouldn't be because there's no shoulder on it, or drinking's not bad unless you drink and drive, and hunting's not bad unless you're just, so there's a lot of, no matter what area you are in society, what your hobbies might be, there's always somebody that makes your hobby look bad. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that, I'm not going to call them hunters, I'm just going to call them jerks, that make hunting look bad. People are saying, yeah, we drive out in the country, we see, what's the deal with all the stop signs and stuff like that with bullet holes in it, and farmers' mailboxes with bullet holes in it? I mean, you hunters are a bunch of assholes. I go, what you don't realize is that's just some asshole out there with a gun. It has nothing to do with hunting. And what a lot of people don't realize is 99% of the game violations that are made in the United States that are convicted and caught is because a hunter turned somebody else in. Because there's no way one game warden is responsible for 1,000 square miles has enough ability to be everywhere at the same time. We're the eyes in the field. A true, genuine hunter that has his ethics and going to abide by the law. When you see somebody screwing with it, like I said, over 90% of the 90% of the poachers, 90% of the things that are happening out there that make hunting look bad, they're turned in by other hunters.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for hunters, we wouldn't be catching the bad guys.
Yeah, it's a great point, because whenever we got our newest game warden in our area here a couple of years ago, we kind of had a get together so we could all meet him and kind of get to know him, and just had some burgers and drank a few beers and bullshitted more or less. But I mean, that's one thing he said whenever we were all sitting around talking is a good game warden is only as good as the hunters in his area. He needs help from landowners and hunters, and one guy can only cover so much ground and do so much. So that's a good point to drive home.
Yep. And be there for your hobby. I mean, the more of these guys that we get out of the field that are making us look bad, it's a feather in our cap. So, and if we don't do it, then it goes the other way real hurry.
Yep, absolutely.
Apathy. You and I were talking about apathy earlier.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you've killed a few sheep with your stick bows, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah. I've been very fortunate. I mean, it took me 16 years to draw my first bighorn sheep tag in Colorado. And I killed a really nice 13-year-old ram.
Holy smokes.
And then 12 years later, I drew the same unit again and shot a 12-year-old ram.
Dang.
Wow.
And then I've had, so, I mean, and to me, the unit I killed those sheep in is what would you think about Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep hunting? It's the Christies, Santa Christies of Colorado. I think there's 14,000 foot peaks in the Christies in that sheep unit. And it's the hardest sheep unit. I've been in all the sheep units in the state of Colorado. I've been in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, there's nothing like this unit. When you think of sheep hunting, it is this unit. And to kill 2 rams out of that unit is really, really special. I think me and Rick Dugan are the only ones that have done that. And I'd like to be the third one. I still put in for that now. I hope to be the probably the one and only person to kill 3 sheep out of that unit.
So when you say it's unique like that, is it just super rugged?
Super rugged.
Yeah.
Well, it goes from, what is it, Harold? It goes from like 5,000 feet straight up to 14,000, doesn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah. Every step is you're getting one more foot of elevation. And you can glass from sheep from one mountain to the next, and with a lot of ranges, there's a ridge system that kind of gets you over that mountain, so you don't have to drop any elevation, or if you do, just a little bit. In the Christies, you see sheep on another mountain, you're that 2,000 feet you just gained, now you got to go all the way back down and back up again, because it's like a bunch of Christmas tree type mountains. There's no ridges in between them. So it's, I wouldn't say no, but where I find the sheep, it's the most gnarly part of the Christies, and I love it. I think my first ram I shot about 10 yards, and my second ram I shot at 12 yards.
Wow.
Which I got to get close because I'm not that good a shot, but it's my first ram I shot him on my 19th day. My second ram I shot him on my 9th day, so I almost cut it in half. Almost lost my job over my first ram. I had 2 weeks vacation, and I just stayed up there. I had to live with these guys because I had to get them used to me. Where they were staying on top of this mountain, they could see me coming from a mile away. So I just had to get them used to me. And every day I'd get, 500 yards away. And they'd stay in their beds till I got, a couple hundred yards closer. Like, no, I'm uncomfortable. So I'd plant my ass there. I did that for 9-10 days of just that cat and mouse thing where they're starting to get comfortable with me being within 100 yards of them. It's where they could just see me 100 yards away and they're still bedded down. They're still doing their thing. And they're like, okay, man, this guy hasn't been a threat for 9 days now. So now that I'm in their living room, I'm in their area. I just had to wait for that most opportune moment to where I could just mad dash it when they're not looking. Kind of went over a little rise, and now I have no visual contact between me and them. But I know when I get there, they're going to be just on the other side. But it was because of that cat mouse game where I just had to let them, because where they were, there was 12 rams there. There's eyeballs everywhere. There was no way I was going to get this ram unless somehow this worked, and that worked. I got him, but I was with those rams for 10 days. I never not mouth with them, and just kind of just stayed with them and until they just kind of got used to me being on the mountain with them and not being a threat. So it all worked out.
That's an extremely interesting tactic, is to just almost get them to where they're accustomed to you being there. I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody saying that or anything. That's pretty cool.
It was the only chance I had because there was no way of putting a sneak on them. And then the next one, I was up there for 9 days, and shot him on my 9th day, and it wasn't even my target ram. It just it came from nowhere, and I was after the ram that I was wanting to shoot, and he's probably still 100 yards away, and I glass up, and then here's this sucker. This guy got through getting got kicked out of his bed from the ram that I was going to shoot, and he ended up being a bigger ram, and he comes walking down to me to find another place to lay down, and just had no idea it was there. That was just a situation where I was just hard work, put me in the right spot at the right time. It really had nothing to do. I didn't even know he was there. I was in the right spot at the right time, but bivy sacking it every night and kind of staying on my target ram. And then this guy showed up out of nowhere and ended up just being a blessing in disguise, and I was able to capitalize.
Is that that tactic of just getting him used to you? Is that something that you came up with, or did you hear somebody use that?
That's just, it happened by accident. Because the Christies are so popular for people on this 14,000 foot craze. There's clubs, there's outfitters that will take you up there to climb 14ers. And you run all those out, then you want to climb all the 13ers, then the 12s. So then I'm starting to, just push these sheep into different areas because of so much human activity up there. But then I'm looking to myself saying, God, they're getting kind of used to that. They're getting kind of used to over there on Crestone Peak of those of people always being up there climbing the 14, and they're claiming to fame, getting a picture with a little cardboard sign saying I climbed Crestone Peak. Well, the Rams just kind of bumped over to the Crestone Needle, and that's a little more high tech, but they're always around people, but there was always that comfort zone. So I would watch these Rams and how they reacted to it, like, Jesus Christ, I'm trying to hunt a ram, and then I'm running into people. But then I kept on seeing how far they would go, and then that seemed to be okay, and the people are right there. And so are the Rams, but they're just half mile apart from each other. So I just like, you know what, I'm going to go be one of those people, but I just stayed on them. Like I say, I was bivy-second, so they didn't just see me randomly on weekends when people climbing 14s and stuff like that. I was there every day, and I was just able to kind of, I guess that might have been what put the idea in my head. I don't know. I just know I tried to use their comfortability, whatever is such a word, of just people climbing the 14ers, and I just did my best to capitalize that and see if I could take it to the next level in a word.
That's pretty interesting, because I've had a pretty highly respected high country deer hunter kind of give me similar advice, and that was more or less, if you've got a buck that you can't stalk without coming into his view at one point or another, wear hiking clothes, just wear regular clothes and act like nothing's going on, and 9 times out of 10 they'll just stay put and not pay any attention to you.
Yeah, if you do it all from underneath them, and that's the key. They still are king of the hill, but once you get above them, that changes everything. But if you stay below them, that goes for mule deer or bighorn sheep. You'll give away your comfortable. You give away your no threat card when I come down on top of you. If I come on top of you, because I did it, I went down on they caught me above them, and holy shit, they blew out of the country. It took me a day and a half to find them. They did not like that. So I'm like, okay, you don't like it, I'm not going to do it again because I don't want to lose track of you. So I always kind of made sure that I never got, level ground was okay, or under them was even better. But if I got above them, they just flat didn't like that. And I guarantee you, mule deer don't like it. Mule deer is my passion. I've shot a lot of high altitude bucks, and that's why I know where a lot of sheep are in the Christies, because of me hunting bucks. And the safeguard goes away when they catch you above them, in my mind and my experiences.
Yeah, and that's pretty well the same thing he said, is walk underneath them and then go up around and get out of view, and then come down on top of them.
Exactly. So yeah, that's very good advice.
What kind of bow were you shooting at the time? Well, I guess they're a lot of years apart, but
Palmer recurve.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've had that bow for now 30 years.
Same bow that you used to hunting the same bow 30 years.
Yeah.
Man,
I'm a mechanic by trade, so if something ain't broke, I ain't gonna try to fix it. So.
Nobody's gonna make money off of you.
No. And I'm really good friends. I volunteer some time every once in a while. I'll work at Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear. I don't know if you guys have heard of Clums or the Cutthroat Broadhead.
Oh, absolutely.
But Danny, I helped him with his bighorn sheep in the Christies. I helped Randy Ulmer with his bighorn sheep in the Christies. And I did that family. There's nothing I won't do for them. I mean, Tom Clum, Tommy, Danny, they're all just class act people. And me and Danny probably hunt pheasants 30 days out of the year. Once pheasant season starts, we get after it. And but at any rate, where was I going with that? And I hate when that happens to me.
Nobody's going to make money off of you.
Oh yeah, so they're always. I'm in there at the shop. I'm helping disabled veterans. I'm helping Craig Hospital people. Something they donate their time to, the first Sunday of every month, and I go down there and do that. And they're always, I'll see bowyers down there. Poison Dart Bows, buddy. He gave me his longbow, and I went and shot 3 black bears with it this year. That's probably about the first bow I have shot other than a Palmer in 30 years. And I shot a turkey with it this year too, that long bow. But and it was just more along to kind of help Buddy out, and he made me a beautiful bow, and I shoot it like a glove. Probably it just really shot well for me, so I used it. But other than that, no, being part of the clones and being part of that network down there, I've got the likelihood of being able to shoot some really cool bows and for different bow years, and I still stick with my Palmer.
Well, there's something to be said about if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And, even at some of these 3D shoots and more of the competitive realm, you'll hear guys say, be afraid of the guy who only owns one bow or has only owned one bow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a guy that's going to ruin arrows, but you probably don't want me shooting at you inside of 30 yards.
It doesn't appear to be.
So at any rate.
Do you ever draw a goat tag?
Okay, this is kind of a sore spot with me.
No,
I never have drawn a goat tag, but I have killed a goat.
So you want to stop there?
No. 33 years of putting in for a license. Never drew. My dad put in for 54 years, finally gave up because he never drew. So it was just the Fahrenbrook name. It just wasn't going to happen. I'm down there stirring the pot down at Division of Wildlife, and I'm never going to draw anything. And I think we talked in the podcast on what I've done for hunters' rights and things and stuff. So I'm a thorn in their side, just trying to keep things honest. And but somebody recycled a tag, so I didn't draw my 33rd year. I just got back from Alaska, and the Division of Wildlife called me and said, "Hey, you were 5th on the list." So somebody turned their tag in. They called person 1. Do you want this tag? They said no. They called person 2. They didn't want it. I was the 5th person, and then after that, they don't want to recycle it. It's like, okay, nobody wants it. And
that seems wild.
I was the 5th person. I was the 5th person, and yeah, damn sure I got it. And I went and shot a really nice billy. But so I still technically never drew the state of Colorado.
Oh, they really screwed the pooch when they changed all this, the new system.
Oh, yeah, don't even get me going there. But
well, that's a heck of a deal. I can't imagine 5 or 4 people before you didn't want it.
Oh yeah, it was the Needles down there, down by it's G5, and it's people die down there every year climbing the Needles and whatnot, and it's really rugged and really neat country. But it was archery only unit.
Oh, okay.
And it was the best odds to draw a tag. There were some years that I was the only person that didn't draw a tag because I keep pretty close eye of them. I just couldn't draw a tag to save my ass.
My wife had the same luck.
No, and my wife finally, they opened up the north end of the unit. They allowed 4 goat tags, and for rifle because bow hunters just weren't killing enough goats. So she had 3 preference points. So in Colorado, you got to have 3 before you're eligible. Which is the stupidest thing ever, but especially if I was a non-resident, you mean to tell me, especially now you're charging me $100 for preference points, I got to give you $300 before I'm even eligible? But you got to have 3 preference points before you're even eligible to draw. So, at any rate, she has 3 preference points, no weighted points, no nothing. She's eligible, and she drew. And there was 4 tags available. The other people that drew, one guy had been putting in for 30 years. One guy had been putting in for 20 plus years. The other guy, I think, was just had put in for 20 that year, and then she draws a 3. And there were 80 plus people that still had between 20 and 30 years of putting in for goat tags that didn't draw. So how did Laura draw with 3? It's just one of those systems.
Yeah.
And but
flawed system.
Yeah, so she shot one hell of a billy. Her billy was a 50-inch billy. She showed an absolute toad.
Man.
And just to tell you how guys are different than women, well, I'll rephrase that. With my wife, she worked her ass off. I couldn't have been more proud of her. We couldn't get to the goat from where we saw from, so we had to look at the maps and figure out how we go on the backside. And we had to climb. We got 13,800 feet over the top of this mountain down the other side to get down to this billy we saw from the day before from across the canyon. I'm like, God, looking at the landmarks with this, he's got to be, if he's still here, he's got to be right here. and she's all used up. She's been shaky. I've had her in some really questionable area on this mountain, and she's just pulled through it like a champ. And so I go, man, so we stop right here. So I walk down about 30 yards. I look over the edge, and there he is, 60 yards away, bedded down. I come up all excited as hell. I'm like, holy shit, he's right down here. She goes, well, what's he doing? I go, he's sleeping. He's bedded down. She goes, well, then I'm going to eat my sandwich. I'm hungry. I'm like, how the hell can you eat a sandwich at a time like this? I mean,
oh man,
he's right here. I mean, she just slowly, I mean, I think it's just, I'm pacing like crazy. It's not even my hunt. And she's like, well, if he's sleeping, I'm going to have my sandwich. I'm hungry. So it's just a different mentality. She stands up to pee, and she slips, bends the scope to the rifle of the gun. So now I don't know where this thing's going to shoot. And we get down to this 60 yards away, and she goes, where do I shoot it? I go, you got to plant him right there. If he goes over this edge, he's 1,500 feet, and we'll never retrieve him. She goes, where do I shoot him? I go, he's got to die right there. Shoot him in his bed. She goes, okay, where on his effing body do you want me to shoot him? And I'm like, oh, yeah, right between his shoulder blades, just right between his shoulder blades. And she shot, and I saw the puff hair, move right there. Of course, she's shooting a 243, but at least I knew it was on. It still hit him in the perfect spot. And he never moved. He never even lifted his head. That sunk. Did he die of old age overnight? Because he never moved. And then finally he stretched out his back leg and just did that thing that he wanted to roll off the edge. But, she severed his spine and he died right there. But that was he never even lifted his chin when she pulled the trigger. He was dead in his bed, so it all worked out good. But just a different mentality of how I can get so wound up and get so much adrenaline pumping I can't see straight. And then she could just calmly eat a sandwich. And I think I lost 10 pounds and just anxiety, But at any rate, I'd rather be calmer like she was, but I'm just not that way.
I would have asked her for a bite of that sandwich, and I'd have had about 2/3 of it.
Yeah, I'd have shoved the whole thing in my mouth. Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, how close we got any more questions, or I'd be glad to answer them.
Oh, I don't think so.
It's probably pretty late there, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty late here. I'm going to be getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go out there and try to get my tree stand. But
well, be careful in the damn thing.
Oh yeah. I'm careful these days.
Well, I'm telling you, this has been a good one.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. Love having you on, Harold.
Yeah, anytime, guys. I mean, absolutely anytime. If you ever just want to shoot the shit and do these podcasts, they're always fun, and I like the way you do them and how they're presented, and I like the people that listen to them. So,
cool.
If I didn't, I probably wouldn't do them. So I think you guys do a good deal, and keep up the good work. And anytime I can add to any of your podcasts and your listeners like me, and you feel you get a good warm fuzzy out of it, then I'll help you out anytime I can. We'll talk about any subject you want to.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And maybe when things get boring, in February or something, maybe we ought to do one on politics or something.
Oh, man, I'd be your best politics guy.
You will be my go-to guy, Harold.
Okay.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, you guys do well, and good luck the rest of this hunting season.
Yeah, take care. Good luck, man.
Okay, take care.
All right, see you, Harold.